Hi, I'm Ezra Goldstein. I started practicing as an advocate in South Africa in 1967 and was appointed a judge in 1987 of what was then known as the Supreme Court of South Africa. In 2008, I retired as a judge and have since then practiced as an arbitrator, in effect, a judge of private disputes. And so, for more than 50 years, I have been involved with the business of litigation. Litigation involves two inquiries. What are the facts and what is the applicable law? Usually, getting the facts right is much more difficult than is finding the law. And so, over the years, I have become much more a mechanic of fact than a mechanic of law. And I have applied the experience and expertise of over 50 years of litigation, over 50 years of finding the truth, to two central questions. Does God exist? And are the 5 books of Moses authentic? In July 2017, I published my answers on the internet in a website, www.theverdict.co.za. The verdict consists now of 46 different sections, virtually each of which can be read alone, and for each, the website gives the reading time in seconds. I deal today with only the 7 sections which are relevant to the existence of God, and the total reading time for the 7 is 6 minutes and 25 seconds. 4 of the sections are called insights. Insight 1 identifies a fatal flaw in the theory of evolution. Insight 1 is headed, "Reproduction has only had one generation to evolve and not billions of years." Scientists have still not managed to explain how organic life first arose. They have tried to create organic life in the laboratory, but have failed. And now they say, in effect, that what cannot be created by design could happen by chance. They say what cannot be created by design could happen by chance. That is absurd. But Insight 1 assumes in science's favor that the absurd could happen and that some form of organic life could arise by chance. Insight 1 goes on to make the simple point that life could not survive beyond one generation if it could not reproduce. And so it would have to evolve the ability to reproduce in one generation. But the evolutionists themselves say that for evolution to occur, you need small changes over many generations. And so the organic life, I am prepared to assume, would die without reproducing. There is a further point worth making. As far as I know, science says nothing at all about how reproduction itself could have arisen by evolution. That is worth repeating. Science says nothing about how reproduction itself could have arisen through evolution. The profound question of what came first, the chicken or the egg, remains unanswered. Of course, that is a very important question. It does not relate only to chickens. It relates to all forms of organic life, to humans and to animals, to birds, to fishes and to plants. Insight 1 was first published in July 2017, and now, after more than a year and tens of thousands of unique visitors as defined by Weebly to the site, the argument in Insight 1 remains unchallenged because it is clearly irrefutable. Interestingly, Genesis is not silent on reproduction. Verses 11, 12, 22, 28, and 29 of chapter 1 mention reproduction, and verses 11, 12 and 29 expressly mention the creation of seed. The divine author of Genesis understood the importance of the inception of reproduction. Science simply overlooks it. Insight 2 makes the simple point that what we like to call the natural world of abundant plant and animal life is actually not a natural component of the universe at all. Because as far as we know, this vast universe, consisting as it does of innumerable heavenly bodies, has, apart from our tiny earth, no life in it whatever. In fact, the overwhelmingly natural state of the universe as a whole, apart from this tiny speck of earth, which is our home, is absolute lifelessness. The overwhelmingly natural state of the universe is absolute lifelessness. And so this precious planet of ours is not at all natural, it is supernatural. Insight 3 identifies the fact that we are all aware of our own existence. We are aware of the I within us, but that I cannot be detected by any physical means. If our body, including our brain, were dissected and examined, we would find no trace of the I. And yet the I that each of us knows exists within us is our most important component. It is the I that makes us each individually irreplaceable. It is the I that we mourn when death occurs. Insight 3 ends with saying that the universe is also infused with an invisible, non-physical I, and of course that great I is God. Insight 4 is headed, "Our thoughts and emotions have a spiritual dimension." Let me read to you what it says. I quote, "Through the workings of the brain, we are able to do absolutely astounding and miraculous things. We are able to view or conjure up in our mind's eye sights and sounds and scenes and events and thoughts and smells and even feelings and emotions, as well as millions of facts collected over years of life's experience and study. We are able to visualize letters and figures and can creatively imagine all kinds of forms not yet existing and about to be made. It is probably true to say that our life's primary occupation is with our world of thoughts and emotions. While some thoughts and emotions may affect us physically, our world of thoughts and emotions is essentially intangible and non-physical. In fact, a search of the brain will fail to detect any physical resemblance to anything seen or perceived so vividly in our world of thoughts and emotion. There will be no photographs of the scenes we recall, no recordings of the music whose memory enthralls us, and no trace or suggestion of the emotion of love we experience so intensely. It would appear that through our physical brain we are in fact connected to a spiritual world, the world of our thoughts and emotions. We are truly both physical and spiritual. There is an afterword to Insight 4 headed "The Spiritual Cell." It refers to the fact that the trillions of cells in organic life are information-based, and that cells communicate with other cells through the transmission of information. But information itself is non-physical. It cannot be weighed or measured. Think of the printed instructions accompanying that device you purchased. Placing those printed instructions on the device or in the vicinity of the device will achieve nothing. You need to read the instructions, understand them, and translate them into action. The spiritual cell ends with the following words, and I quote, "Our bodies are, of course, run by our cells, and our cells operate through non-physical information. Information which is, in essence, part of a non-material reality. It follows that we are entirely saturated with that non-materiality. And that non-materiality can only be part of a spiritual world that permeates and directs every aspect of our being." The last section I deal with is headed Darwin Demolished. This section was recently added to the Verdict website. The essential point made is that whilst it is impossible to believe that even a single cell could arise by chance, it is absolutely preposterous to believe that the zillions of cells in the world could all have arisen by chance. And yet, this is what the scientists say, and arguably, they too accept that it is preposterous. Arguably, they too accept that it is preposterous. Writing in 1997 in the New York Review of Books, renowned scientist Professor Richard Lewontin confessed, and I quote, "We take the side of science in spite of the patent absurdity of some of its constructs, because we have a prior commitment, a commitment to materialism. It is not that the methods and institutions of science somehow compel us to accept a material explanation of the phenomenal world, but on the contrary, that we are forced by our a priori, that is by our prior adherence to material causes, to create an apparatus of investigation and a set of concepts that produce material explanations. Moreover, that materialism is absolute, for we cannot allow," he writes these words in caps, "a divine foot in the door," unquote. It is important to note that the professor acknowledges that science is wedded to a basic, non-negotiable premise or assumption that there is only a physical reality. What is very significant too, and is worth emphasizing, is that that premise or assumption was, he admits, not arrived at by a scientific method. We who live in the real world know that that stubborn and immutable approach of science is false, since it fails to take account of the reality that our world is supernatural, as Insight 2 shows, and that there is a significant spiritual dimension of which we are fully aware, as Insights 3 and 4 clearly show. The views in Insights 2, 3 and 4, also published in July 2017, remain unchallenged after more than a year. On the first page of the verdict appear the words, "The purpose of the verdict is to change the current, lonely, bleak, secular culture of the world," unquote. Let's change the world together. Let's make this video go viral.